Welcome, everyone, to the 7th episode of the Med Spa Accelerator podcast, brought to you by Cass Clinical Consulting and Everable. I'm your host, Luis Treviño, and I'm joined today with our co-host, Cassie Craig. And today is just us. We are November 14. We're getting close to Thanksgiving here, but we're excited to bring to you this 7th episode. Super excited because if you heard our last episode last week, right? We're officially on iTunes and we're on Spotify and every other podcasting platform that you guys can think of. So we are official, guys. It's exciting news. So if you ever want to listen to us on the road, or if you're traveling, you want to listen to us on an airplane, go ahead, go to iTunes, download each episode, and you can check us out there. And go ahead and subscribe, guys. When you subscribe, it really helps us kind of help other people like yourself find us easier on all these platforms. And then also, if you would be kind enough, leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Ask us questions. Let other people know about the podcast. That way, we can get the word out. We get more people to listen in. So thank you for that in advance. So today, we wanted just to kind of talk about, we're nearing the end of the year, and obviously Cassie and I are always kind of like at the forefront, kind of spearheading a lot of things in regards to advertising, marketing, the latest kind of strategies and insights that we have whenever we're really just trying to take our practice, or Cassie's practice, and then my clients, right, to that next level. And so we're always testing things, we're always trying to figure out things. And recently I made a video talking about, what we learned after spending about, I think, probably a little bit over $250,000 in advertising for co-scoping and just medical spas in general. So in today's episode, Cassie and I wanted to jump into some of those foundings, and I've kind of put together like a framework of what we call now our 7-figure med spa formula. And basically a proven, dead simple 3-step system that can be used to build a 7-figure practice in record time. And I know Cassie can attest to this because she built a triple diamond level practice in record time. What was it, like less than 12 months or something?
Yeah, we did it in 11 months with diamond with everything, 11 months.
Yeah, that is awesome. And so we're going to go over 3 things today. One of them is, and so I talked about those 3 things, right? So step 1 is you want to have your market authority system. Number 2, you want to have a social selling system. And number 3 is that you want to have a, what I call a clicks into clients conversion system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of step 1, step 2, and Cassie and I will kind of riff on these a little bit. And then Cassie's going to jump into step number 3, which is really honing in that conversion system. So, because that step 1 is really all about having a proven process to establish trust and credibility in your local market. And so when I talked, so kind of where this idea or this formula originated from is that after spending, all these thousands of dollars in marketing and advertising, we really kind of came to this realization that if we're just generating leads, right, if we're advertising to a cold market, and we put out, let's say, a coupon or a gift card or something else along those lines, and you're not leading with some type of education, you're not establishing trust or credibility, then what's going to happen is that we're going to generate a lot of leads that are going to have a low conversion rate in the back end. They might be cheap leads, right? They might be $5 leads, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost you, it's going to be a lot more work on the back end, having to convert, follow up with these leads, getting them to schedule, getting them to buy once they come in, right? And so, Cassie, I mean, I don't know if you kind of had some experience about this, like, because I know, I know recently we've kind of focused in on kind of honing in your market, bringing it down a little bit more, and that's kind of caused for the cost to go a little bit higher. But we're also leading with a lot more education. We're leveraging a lot of video. Even after we convert a lead, we're actually retargeting them with a lot more video on the back end as well. So, I mean, I don't know if you've had any experience about that. And then I know you've also spent a lot of time doing video and just kind of, getting your name out there.
Yeah, with each campaign that I've ever done, there are a lot of variables, right? So I like what you said about it's not just about getting cheap leads. You'll see, in fact, I saw an ad, somebody targeted me the other day with a marketing ad agency kind of thing. And it was, leads, cool sculpting leads for $7. And it's just so much deeper than that. And I have had times that my leads were really cheap, but my conversions were really low, and then vice versa. Right now, I'm kind of, really riding in a sweet spot, especially for this time of year, which it's expected that the cost for a client acquisition is going to go up right around the holidays, right around the month of November is really a tough one because I don't know if anybody's like myself, women, and cool sculpting being kind of a fit, right? I actually am seeing a higher rate of male conversions right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting and something I want to kind of dissect a little bit. But yeah, it's difficult also as a provider or as a business owner to really understand what changes need to be made when you see shifts in the client acquisition cost, the lead rate go down. I track these numbers, weekly, because especially lately I'm seeing big like pendulum swings week by week. Anyway, there's a lot to it. And I think we'll get into that in step 3, how to convert and watch the reasons why you're converting at a high rate or vice versa on that.
Yeah. And we're really big on this because here's the thing, like you're advertising to a cold market. And a lot of the times when I'm onboarding new clients or when I'm speaking to potential new clients, like I ask them, well, what's your conversion rate? Like my conversion rate's great. We close at 70, 80% once we get them in here. And it's like, well, you're not going to get those conversions, man. Like, I'm just sorry to tell you.
We were just talking. I was saying, my happy place, like where I know that my team is doing what they need to do on just a yes or no conversion. We're not talking about values of conversions, but if we are around 30%, then this is a really good place. It's acceptable at 20%, but we got to start working really hard. And I've seen it as high as 45%, but that's typically outside of my control. That's the market. That's the direct consumer marketing campaigns that Allergan is putting out. That's got some other variables that are outside of my power.
Yeah, and I also want to say maybe just the time of year too. There's during times of the year where people are most likely to buy it regardless. Yeah. And this is why we're so big on this, because you guys really have to focus in on building that trust and credibility in the marketplace. Like the reality is that people don't know you, And so again, like our business philosophy goes down to this, like we do business with people we know, we like, and we trust, right? And we don't do business with other businesses. We do business with other people. And so we're big on, there being a face to the practice, because that is the easiest way to build trust and credibility, right? And so when we're able to kind of put you out there, and this is why we're also very huge on video, and if you've heard our podcast and our previous episodes, we talk about video a lot, because we want to get you out there. We want to start building audiences and having people see you. And video is so great because it's going to appeal to your ideal patients, and it's going to repel the ones that you don't want to work with, right? And so you want to have, and the goal of this is that you want to build brand awareness. You want to build some type of brand loyalty, right? Once they start seeing these videos and all this stuff like that, and then they start to like you, they start to kind of see you as an expert in the marketplace, then that's when we have to retarget them with some type of offer, right? And so the goal of this is really just to create that warm audience of your ideal patients. And you want to build this audience essentially of people that are going to have a lot more intent. And so I know in Cassie's kind of like training program, she talks a lot about like the consumer journey, and it's really something that like is ultra important. We both talk about it a lot, but you have your cold audience and your hot, right? And you have to kind of implement systems to drive people from like that cold audience to all the way to hot, right? So it's like, what are you leverage? So the question is like, what are you doing right now to convert that cold audience into a warm audience, right?
I like for people to think about a store, a brand that you like, that you do business with. Think about if you can remember the very first purchase that you ever made with that business and the experience around that purchase. What happened? Maybe it was in store. I think a lot of what I'm researching and studying right now is about online sales. But there's always this purchase that kind of introduces you to the brand. And then after that, the job of that company is to escalate you to higher purchases or to long-term purchasing, membership, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just clicked the other day that, in the med spa, we think that all of our sales are high ticket sales. And so a lot of my studying and research goes around high ticket sales, what happens on phones with high ticket sales, what happens, with the consumer, how long are they studying, how long are they researching the product that they're buying. That when we are setting appointments, I was telling my staff yesterday, this is our introductory purchase. This is it's that, bra from Victoria's Secret that you bought on sale, the very first purchase ever. Their decision to come in and sit down in a consultation is a purchase decision. For my own staff, we charge $30. So it's kind of clear that this is the very first time that they're choosing to say yes to a purchase in our business. And that really needs to be treated as if they bought a skincare product or they bought even Cool Sculpting. And these people need to be nurtured along the journey. But as you go through your customer journey with a vendor, maybe it's Amazon, that's probably a good one that everybody can kind of relate to. Think about the first time that you bought with Amazon or the first time you bought with a company, and then what happened after that company nurtured you to continue buying, to continue loving them. And how, in fact, do you refer that company now? Because that's really our goal, is to get every client from that first $30 purchase to a $10,000 purchase to telling their friends to come and do their $10,000 purchases.
Yeah, 100%. And so in marketing, it's usually referred to as like the value ladder, right? You want to have like that introductory offer. And so a lot of the times what we're doing is like that introductory type of thing, or that first interaction is going to be some type of educational piece, right? So as I was saying, like some type of content, and taking this back to just kind of like the kind of digital marketing realm, right? Where it's like you want to have some type of marketing piece that is going to introduce them to your company, that is going to build some type of likability, some trust, some credibility, all that stuff, right? And then the second thing to that is like kind of building off that ladder is we usually will do some type of direct call to action. In this case, it's usually some type of gift card or something like that, where it's like, yes, it's free, but it's still an exchange of value, because they're getting that gift card in exchange for their contact information, which is still valuable. It might not be a monetary, it might not be money, but it's still something of value, because they're giving you their contact information, their name, their email, and their phone number.
Yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes behind that. I mean, think about the last time you gave your name, email, phone number. There's a level of willingness to purchase just to do that, because we know what comes after that. It comes our emails and our contacts. And so a client is deciding, yes, I want to be contacted by this company every time they do that. So it's a purchase.
Yeah. So what can you do to kind of build, to take people from cold to a warm audience in kind of like the digital marketing space? So a few ideas, right? Obviously, social media is huge. Keep doing social media posts. If you're not doing them, then you need to be doing them. So I always recommend put stuff about you, because that's what's going to get the most shares and likes and comments. Like if you just put like pictures of other things like that are not really, they're not authentic, or they're not really about your practice, a lot of times it just gets left by the wayside. Think about what you like and post. Like at the end of the day, social media, or especially Facebook, is a big platform where you're with friends and family. And you want to see pictures of other people, of your friends, of things that are funny or that are educational, etc. So think about that and put more things about you, about your practice, about real people, versus just like graphics and things like that don't
really. I see this mistake all the time. And in fact, people pay people to make this mistake for them. They post like flyers. Like if you go onto a competitor's Facebook page today and look, it's flyer after flyer after flyer. It's not the same kind of posting that you would put yourself up for your family and friends. And that's really where that needs to be the mentality. It does not have to be it doesn't even have to be a huge value piece. People do like value. They do like education. They do like for you to share your knowledge with them, but they don't want to see a buy one syringe, get one half off kind of thing. That means nothing to them. And it's an obvious, it's an obvious solicitation, whereas they're on Facebook to be entertained. So, education entertains people. Reality, like, just filming something. It doesn't even have to be a service. Just
Like,
film yourself and in the break room. You know, that's where
yeah.
people really want to sit, is watch you guys with your colleagues and your peers.
Yeah, seriously, because think about like MTV shows and reality shows and like all that stuff. And you even think about like YouTube right now. Like if you don't know, YouTube has become huge, a huge platform where all people do is watch other people live their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. Is there like, and think about Seinfeld. Like Seinfeld was like one of the biggest, shows of all history, right? It was so popular. What was the show about? Nothing. It was a show. It was a show about nothing. Like literally people just living their lives and having like mini stories within them. And that's.
And if Seinfeld were selling syringes of filler or cool sculpting, wouldn't you buy from them? Like you want people to know that you're fun to be around, not know what you're selling, because they already know that. You want them to be. And back to like long-term marketing campaigns, a lot of people were introduced to our services, our specials, our people back 6 months, a year, 2 years ago, depending on how long you've had them following you on social media. It takes time to get them to a place where they're ready to purchase, but you want them to know that when I get there, when I decide that I'm going to do these things, I'm definitely going to see her. So if Jerry Seinfeld were doing cool sculpting, he'd be very, very successful because he's fun to be around.
Yeah, and his following is huge. Yeah, exactly. And so, okay, so what are some of the other things? We talked about social media, educational Facebook Lives, educational blog posts, some type of white paper or ebook, some type of checklist, some free videos, a guide, free kits, like a book that you wrote. I mean, honestly, or a PDF that you wrote. Like, honestly, guys, it could be anything, but it's just something that is going to get people exposed to your brand. Our favorite is video. And doing some type of Facebook Live, like educational, either Facebook Lives or just educational video. And that's usually what we kind of tend to do. So that first one is you need to have a proven process to establish trust and credibility in the local market. And so that's step number one. Step number two is you need to have a social selling system. And you need to have a proven process to consistently drive those warm leads, right? That warm audience, turn them into leads, so that you can fill your sales pipeline. And this is where a lot of like social media companies kind of fail, because they're all about brand awareness. And that's great. You want your brand to get out there, but you also want to have a direct response piece to it, where it's like, what is direct response? Well, you want to generate leads, right? You want people to have a direct response to your ad or to your content. In that case,
conversation that you're always talking about. It's
building that conversation, generating that lead. So getting their name, their email, and their phone number. And, so go ahead.
Shoot. Sorry, I wanted to break in and back up just a little bit, because it just dawned on me that a lot of people don't understand what we're talking about when we say cold, warm, and hot audiences. And so just to put what you're saying in some perspective, like the warm person is somebody who's already maybe purchased something at a low end. Maybe they filled out that lead form. They are a bit accustomed to you. The cold person is somebody that you're advertising to. They're not following you on Facebook. You're paying to get in front of them. And then hot, obviously, is that referring person. Sorry I interrupted.
No, that was great. So that's the thing, guys, because it's like, well, a lot of people stop at the brand awareness, but they don't actually take this extra step, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, brand awareness is great, but if nobody's showing up at your doorstep and you're not, generating sales, then, you're not making money and you're going to go out of business, right? And so you want to have a proven process to fill your pipeline. And this is essentially what we're doing every single day, right? We're generating leads. We're getting people to fill our pipeline, and we're having these patient opportunities where we can follow up on. And
I'm going to jump in again. Yeah. You're talking marketing speak, and I know a lot of people don't understand what a pipeline is. And that's just really, if you visualize a funnel, it's like you're throwing people into that, and then they strain down into the area that you want, then the service recommendations and all of that. So a pipeline is just that CRM that we talked about in previous episodes, getting people into that so that you can market to them, and hopefully specifically to them in more of less of a generalized way.
And this is where we kind of hit like this kind of, what should we call it? It's like kind of like this really, well, it's a really great place to be at, because before, a lot of people don't really know where the next patient is coming from, right? You know, they're kind of hope, and a lot of businesses that we speak to is like they're referral based. You know, it's like, well, you know, well, yeah, I mean, I drive all my business from referrals, but I tell people like, look, you don't really have a real business until you're actually paying to generate a new patient. And this is something that you and I talk about all the time, because it's like, well, okay, so how much is it costing me to get a new patient through the door, right? And that's a really great place to be in, because now that you know that, like, let's say, okay, every time I spend $500, I generate a $5,000 sale. I bring in a new patient, I generate a $5,000 sale, or like, let's say even less, a $3,000 sale or something like that. Well, now you have a 3 or 5 times ROI. And now, you know, all I need to do to grow my business with predictability and consistency is spend $500.
Turn that up. Yep.
Yeah, turn it
Yeah,
up.
once you get the math behind it, and especially like in this point, so in this point in my journey, I have a couple of years of data, so I can actually start watching trends, and that's the stuff that I was talking about that's outside of your control, that's outside in the marketplace, that you can watch. Okay, I know that my sales have in the past dipped by 10% this week of, you know, between Christmas and New Year's or whatever. I can start preparing for that, whether it be market harder so I can avoid that, or whether it be, you know, that's the week I take my vacation, whatever. Gathering data long term gives you so much information, and when you see something that's clicking along that's giving you better than a $3 return on a $1 spend, then you know you can turn that up and count on the predictability and reliability of systems-based and systems-driven business is the only way to do long-term business. And like, I know a lot of people who depend on referrals, but the place that you're putting, and that's great because referrals are easier, they're nicer, they spend more, you don't have to market, you don't have to know anything about business, but God forbid something happen and you have to get like a locum tenens doctor to come in and do your stuff, or you have to, you know, anyway, you'll close shop if it's all based on one person and an owner reliant system.
And I think from my experience and kind of what I've heard people tell me, it's like they rely on the referrals, like especially for cool scoping. And this is, you know, obviously every other machine is different, but like when like obviously somebody's a med spa, and then they bring in the cool scoping machine, and then they leverage heavily their client base to generate sales, which lasts for about 3 to 6 months. And then they reach out to us because they're like, you know, I've already exhausted my patient list. And then so the referrals are going to end sometime, guys. Like if you don't have I'm not saying referrals shouldn't be part of your business, because it definitely should. Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, like we need to have, like, it's going to run out, especially if you don't have a predictable system to generating those referrals. At that point, you need to have some type of system that is going to predictably, like I was saying before, generate leads, fill your pipeline, get new people, get butts and seats, get treatments done.
Referrals is the goal. Like making more people become referrers is the goal, because it takes, you know, the marketing expenses way down. But you don't want to just be basing, you know, your referral business on this small group of people. You want to always be adding a couple, because and this is something I know is true from health club ownership for long term. It's like I can have a group of people that are paying their membership fees, or that are paying your injectables fees, and they're doing it regularly enough that it cover all the bills. But time happens and we're going to lose 1 or 2 of them a month. So we have to be constantly replacing them so that we can keep that base income that we're expecting right there.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's huge. And then, and the other thing that I want to talk about, like kind of as like really important that a lot of times people don't really think of, is lifetime customer value. Like, you know, you might in the front end get a 3 to 5 times ROI, but then what is the lifetime customer value of that new patient you brought in? And so I have one client who and granted, a lot of people don't know this, and I get it. Sometimes it's hard, especially if you don't have, like, if you're not tracking effectively. But like, for example, say every time we generate a new patient, in the span of 12 months after that, 50% of them will come back and spend around $2,000 in our practice, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's great, you know, because now, you know, it's like, okay, well, I might be spending X dollars amount on advertising, and it might be costing me to generate, this amount of money. You know, it might be costing me, let's say, $500 to generate a new client, which is bringing in maybe $3,000 or $5,000, et cetera. But I know in the next 12 months, they're going to come in and spend an additional $2,000, or let's just say $1,000, because 50%, right? So $1,000, hey,
Now you're in the, now you're
Yeah.
in the profit. I've seen this, especially in markets that are very competitive with cool sculpting. Your lead costs are higher, right? Like Atlanta, the Atlanta market is not the cheapest market, but I've seen in markets like Chicago and New York, lead costs be tremendous. And so sometimes it has to, you have to think about long term, because if I get a client and I spent $2,000 to get that client and they spent $2,500, it feels like, okay, we're working for nothing. But that's not true, because we're consistently trying to escalate that client to a regular purchaser, or
Exactly.
and to find out how much your client lifetime value is fairly simple. You can take your overall revenue, and you can do it by 12 months, or you can do it for the history of your business, and then divide that by how many clients you have. And that's going to give you the average value of each of those clients. And then you can look at, okay, how many times are people visiting? Your POS systems and your CRM systems should have the availability to gather that data fairly easily. And you have to know that number, because especially on stuff like cool sculpting, where it's expensive to get somebody new on the table. So if I'm breaking even, is it worthwhile? Are these people coming back? Are they spending money on other things? If so, then yes. If not, then we need to go back to the drawing board. So definitely gather that number, guys.
And here's like another like insight, right? So that I think is really important that a lot of people miss. It's because like, okay, well, once somebody becomes a patient, right? Then, sometimes, like you might be breaking even. Other times you're at a profit. But the goal of advertising is to generate a new patient. Even if you just broke even, which is obviously we don't want to be there, but even let's just say worst case scenario, you broke even. Well, now you paid $0 to acquire data. And for any business, data is one of the most valuable assets that you can have, right?
Great point.
Yeah. And so like for me, for example, I spent like, let's say, and so I ran an advertising campaign last month. And let's say I spent about $2,500 in just advertising, and I generated a ton of leads. But I was kind of testing out some new things in the market, some new campaign that I had never run before, and I got like maybe 150 leads. I just converted one, guys. There's a lot of issues in my pipeline. I know that I could have done better at my sales process and all this stuff. My targeting was a little off. But hey, I got one client, and guess what? I broke even, right?
Yeah.
Which is for me still a win, because month 2 I'll be profitable, right? Month 2 I'll be profitable, but now I acquired all this data. I learned I learned what I need to fix in my sales pipeline. I know what I need to fix in my marketing pipeline, and you know what? It cost me $0.
I think this takes us to the step 3, what we were talking about before we started recording, is the training. Training is very expensive to get, like really good training, but you know what trains people the best is throwing them into, people who work hard, especially us who are business owners, throw you into a system that's not quite working. Because you find what's wrong, and then you fix what's wrong, and you learn that so much better. So I've been through months where it's a break even or even a loss on some marketing campaigns. I did a campaign to men about a year ago, and I ran that for 90 days. And honestly, we probably lost $1,000 over the whole thing. But the data that I gathered on men, the data that I gathered on my staff, the consultation strategies, all of that stuff that I could not have known, that's invaluable. I take that with me forever.
And that's what I was saying before. Like the goal of advertising is to acquire customers. So even if you just or acquire a lead, like even if you acquire a lead or a customer, it's like, well, now you have this lead or customer that you can continue to market to without having to pay additional money, right? They're in your CRM. You can continue to, call them, email them, text message them, right? Or just have them in your pipeline, have them in your vicinity, where you can still continue to market to them at the end of the day, right? And so
each of these people has so much information on their demographic, because each person is their own demographic in some respects. So every conversation, these are very valuable things that honestly, like even myself, I'm only tapping into, everything's data driven and everything is electronic. In the last 5 years of me being in business, we're in the infancy of the ways in which we can target and market to people. So each of these people is just a a little bundle of value. If the longer the relationship goes, each time they reach out, they tell you about it. They're giving you information every interaction, or even non-interactions. My CRM will tell me how much of my client base opened an email, how much of the video they watched inside the email, what was the stopping point when they turned it off. All kinds of stuff is there. So putting people in is just an invaluable, at this point I have about 12,000 contacts that I know have been interested in something along the way. So I'm just beginning to define, what is available to me when using this data.
Yeah. So let's get into point number 3 here. So point number 2, guys, is you need to have a social selling system, a proven process to consistently generate warm leads and then fill your sales pipeline, right? Now, once they're in your sales pipeline, then comes the fun part, because you need to actually turn these people into actual paying, like these leads, right, into actual paying patients. And so you need to have a conversion system, a proven process to nurture and then schedule consults and then convert those consults into actual paying patients. We're big, and for a big important piece to this is a CRM. So you need to look into having one. But I know Cassie, obviously, she teaches all these things, and she has a really great system for converting these people. So Cassie, I'd love to hear your.
Well, it starts with the CRM, and I don't know how many business owners I talk to that have no tracking system, or they're using an Excel spreadsheet for their new leads. And the Excel spreadsheet doesn't give you anything except for, did the person answer the phone or not? So, like I said, I'm just now digging into the opportunities that are available to me that, and quite honestly, guys, there's not a lot of research in our market done on sales. So it's I'm constantly finding new and better ways to reach this target market, or the demographic that I'm going at. Right now, I am developing a list where I can actually segment my audience into the professions that they have, not just age demographics or gender demographics, but, what are people's interests? Because that's what Facebook is doing. We're able to target audiences based on their interests. So I have 12,000 people that I could really, start finding out what they're interested in. So the CRM is the beginning, and just getting everybody in there, because it's not going to go anywhere. That data that you've paid for a lead, they can continue being valuable to you long-term if you put them into the CRM. And then, you have to constantly be training. I have a really productive sales team. I have a very, a proven system to get high ticket sales in my business, and people are pretty good at it. And my close rates are where they need to be. We see, just normal fluctuations, like everything is very reliable, but I don't stop training them. I spend at least 2 hours on site training my people every week. And I think that's where the biggest opportunity that is missed by 99% of the business owners that I talk to is ongoing training and the value of that. In fact, we're going to have my buddy Leon on in next week, I think, or the week after, if we don't do for Thanksgiving week. But anyway, Leon
now he has to be on here because we already mentioned his name.
Yeah, I know, and I just did that to it. So I just did that. Yes, I did. But Leon is one of the few business owners who really understands that and spends a lot of time training his staff. And I had the opportunity of visiting his spa, and it was the best, most cohesive group of people. And he has a fairly large staff, like 10 people on at all times. It was one of the most cohesive groups I've ever seen, and it's because they spend that time training. So, understanding the process on the phone and how to get that little close, that $30 consultation fee, or just the yes to the consultation, that little purchase decision. The words that need to happen, the flow, what's going on psychologically for the consumer, all of that stuff just needs to be revisited and revisited. And something that a lot of people are not doing, that I see a huge opportunity lost, is recording conversations. Not only for record your conversations with your people, your staff, because, of liabilities, all of that, like we want to cover our bases and make sure everything is documented. So recording conversations on the phone or text and email conversations is important for that reason. But it's such great training material, because I do so many seminars. I do so many little workshops, and people sit and they listen to me say how to do this correctly. Here's how you do it. Nothing is more eye-opening than someone hearing their own, like watching their own consultation or hearing their own conversation and saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that, because they feel it. People feel it in themselves. So phone recording, I think, is a huge part of making your processes and more fun. You know, like my staff reviews their phone calls together. They get to laugh together. Like everybody's been in that terrible conversation that just, or everybody stuck their foot in their mouth. Everybody has messed up big time. And then celebrating wins together. You know, everybody, the pride, sense of pride goes up so much when they all hear it. Like, oh, you did amazing there. So training. That's the biggest lost opportunity I see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would sum it up into three things. Like one is you need to have that, and CRM, what does CRM stand for? Client Relationship Management Tool, right? So CRM tool. So you need to have that tool that's going to give you all this data. And here's the thing, guys, like what's also great about that tool and why we kind of have it as part of, like when we onboard a new client, we always have them get some type of CRM tool. That is what's going to help us identify, oh, okay, it's costing me $500 to generate a new client.
Yes.
If
hey,
you don't
just
have
out of curiosity, how many, because you talk to, I think you probably get a variety of business owners that's probably representative of the whole out there. How many business owners do you talk to that are not using a CRM tool?
A lot of them are using like the scheduling tool, like, you know, Aesthetics Pro, MD Wear, like all that stuff. Okay. But I want to say maybe only like, I want to say less than 5% are using some type of CRM tool, like Infusion.
That's what I feel, but I didn't know, because people reach out to me when they need that kind of stuff. I do feel like, you know, 5 years ago, it was the people who did it 5 years ago. Those are the big names now, because they were, again, this is in its infancy. There's so much data. I don't know if it's interesting, and this is just a funny side story, but there have been two people that I've recently met, and I've told them what I do. One being a personal trainer. I hired a personal trainer for accountability purposes. The next day I came in for my first training session, and she had just happened to see my advertisements for the first time on Facebook that awesome. Night. And it happened again at the bank. This lady was like, I swear, like my phone had, like, it's almost like the phones maybe hear what we're talking about or certain keywords. So, there's stuff going on, guys, that's like, guys, I was like, my marketing guy's doing his job.
This is the goal. Like, sorry to cut you off there. I'm like, this, because I get really pumped up and excited about it. Like, this is the goal, guys, that when you go grocery shopping, when you go to the bank, when you go to the gym, people stop you like, oh my God, I've seen your videos. You're so cool. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Like, I really like everything you talk about, you know, and then it's just building.
These people, without a Google search, they never searched for my stuff. They never, like, it's almost like Facebook and Google are getting so smart that if you think it, then you're going to see it.
That's so true. Yeah.
I have no idea, but people are seeing my ads once and maybe it's because our phones come near each other. You know, stuff like that. But anyway, people who are beginning to understand CRM right now, in 5 years' time, you will be so ahead of the game, because if only 5% of med spa owners are actually using one now, then you're in the first 5%. So learn that, because it will definitely, like, that's how we stay ahead, is one step ahead of the market, right? This CRM understanding is everybody in all the other markets understand it. And the only reason, you know, I was able to apply it really quickly was because I understood it from health club markets. This is how we, you know, kept up with numbers and how we kept up with leads. So
you have to do that in that, because that market is already so competitive. And that's what we were talking about before. Like med spas are still kind of in its early ages, you know, like, I mean, it's still kind of getting into there's more competition now, you know, but I mean, compared
90% of people 90% of med spa owners are successful because of referrals. So don't be that guy, because 5 to 10% of us are learning how to use data-driven, proven processes and how to leverage the CRM and the electronic things that, gosh, advertising is so much better and easier than it was 10 years ago when I was running direct mail and doing cold calling on the phone. Like, maybe this person's interested in something I have. So being like, understanding this stuff, guys, in 5-10 years is really going to separate you from the herd. And on the other end too, if you're reliant on, your customers' referrals, you're going to separate, but in the direction you don't want to go.
Yeah. Huge. Okay. So going back to this, it was number one is that CRM tool. Number two is you have a patient nurturing type of system or sequence. So your CRM tool will actually allow you to do this. And what we mean by that is that once you generate a lead, like what happens, right? How are you nurturing them? How do you continue to educate them? We said that once you generate a lead, you don't have to pay anymore to continue advertising to them. You can still retarget them and you should still do that. But at the end of the day, you should, educate them using a series of emails. You can do webinars, you can do additional videos that you send via email, even through text message, and then also obviously, giving them a call. And that's number three, actually, having phone and consult protocols like that are proven, that are systemized. Like I tell people, look, when somebody comes in, when you get on the phone with someone, they ask you, how much does it cost? What do you say to, like, what does your provider or the person, your front desk say to them? And if they're saying something different every single time, then that is like, there's a discrepancy there.
There has to be an auditing system there. So like once you have that proven process and the protocols for your phone calls and your consultations, you've got to make sure, like I'll go in sometimes and watch a staff member like do a consultation. And I will be like, okay, why are they winging it? Because it's just what we fall back on. It's like they learn it, and then they go back to winging it and not doing the system. So you've got to constantly be training and auditing and assessing and training and iterating and reiterating and finding, that sweet spot, but making sure that your people are not getting lazy, because they will.
Yeah. And it just happens. I mean, it's life, they might have something going on in their life right now. And then that's why training's so great, because you bring them back to that point where they can still be productive. They still feel great about their job, and they feel closer to all the other team members, and they feel like they're progressing or they're growing as an individual, which is just really, really important. So training's huge. So going back, guys, to reiterate the three things, we're pretty much at a close here. Step number one is you need to have a market authority system, a proven process to establish trust and credibility in your marketplace. Step number two, a social selling system, a proven process to consistently generate warm leads and then fill your sales pipeline. And then step three, a clicks into clients conversion system, a process to nurture those leads, schedule consults, and then turn those consults into actual paying patients that later will refer you because of the awesome treatment and the way that you help them transform their lives. And they're going to tell all their friends, leave great reviews, all that stuff. So
that's where you want to be, guys, is understanding that when I spend X, I make X. And then it's a machine that you just, it's like a vending machine. Like you put a quarter in, you know what you're going to get out.
It's the analogy a lot of people use is like you're printing money, which is, kind of like the promised land, right? Everybody wants to get to that point. But it's, guys, I mean, these systems are simple, right? Mm-hmm. And I say they're simple because they're not complex. Like we do them all the time, like Cassie and I. But the reality is, just because they're simple, it doesn't mean they're easy. It does take work. It does take putting in the money. And there will be times where it just feels like your gut just kind of hurts because you're like, I need to figure this out. And you're having problems. Every business goes through that. That's just part of growing as a business, as an individual. And that's just business in general, and then you're going to keep kind of evolving, growing through these things. But if you want to kind of have a business that is going to, obviously if you want to grow it, you want to take it to the next level, and you want to dominate your competition, or you want to dominate your market, etc.
Or just protect. I want to break in. Even if your goal is to just protect your own business, and like a lot of physicians that I talk to, they don't want to be where I want to be. They don't want to grow a huge business and dominate or anything. They just want to pay their bills, and you still have to be systems reliant to do that long term. So hear that. I hope everyone hears that.
And I guess this also is a good place to bring up, like, what is the end goal for you? Like, why did you start the business in the first place? And like, what do you want to sell it eventually? Do you want to retire with it and maybe pass it along to your children? Like, I don't know. Like, everybody has a dream, and the business was a means to an end, right? You didn't just go into business just to be working 80 hours a week, or how many hours a week you're working, right? It's like, you want to do something with it. And so, and we talked about this before, right? Where we say, like, look at where you want to be and then reverse engineer, or think backwards, right? How do you get there? And if you want to sell a business, you need to have these things. Like, it's just going to provide a lot more value, and you're going to be able to sell it at, higher dollar value. But then too, like, if you really want to have a business that you can pass on to your children, you want to build a legacy, then 10 years from now, when your children, or 20 years from now, when your children can actually take over this business, the only way it's going to survive that long is if you have these systems,
Yes, make sure that I had a really wise person tell me at one point that I needed to decentralize the power. I needed to make sure that if something happened to one person, that the business would survive. And that's the best and most simple and also most complicated, complex piece of advice ever. Like, to do that, and I've done it, but it took time. And so when you say these things are simple, they are very simple, and every big business has these three steps that you're talking about. But once you start covering them, you realize how deep you can go to make them better and better. And that's really, your job as the business owner, whether you want this, everybody wants their business to stick around. I think knowing your goal is very important. Like, where do you want to be? But make sure that you have these three things in check, because your competitors will. Everybody's catching up.
So I want to invite you guys, to all of our audience here listening today. We're coming up towards the end of the year. We're hitting November, hitting December. It's usually a slow time during the year. But then January, sometimes, depending on the area of the country you're in, it could be a not so great month. Other times it could be an okay month, right? But then February really comes in, and that's when you start seeing like revenue kind of kick in a little bit more. So I want to invite you guys to spend a little bit of time right now and just really think, like, what are your goals for 2019? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And, what type of methods can you implement today to really help you get there? And so I want to invite you guys to consider, and I'm going to do a soft pitch here. We don't do a lot of pitching on this podcast. We don't like to do it. If you ever want to find out more about us, you can, go to our websites and check us out, etc. But I want to do a soft pitch here because obviously, we believe, both Cassie and I, we strongly believe in what we do, and our goal is really to help as many people build a business as, a business that they're proud of, right? And that is what we're really passionate about, and that's why we do the podcast. That's why we put all this stuff out there. And so during this time of year is a great time of the year to really start thinking about what do I want to accomplish in 2019, and what type of systems and processes can I implement to help me get there. And so I want to invite you guys, if you're struggling, like if you already have a marketing system that does well, does nurture your market, does bring in leads, but the conversions are not there, that is the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems that I see. It's either like marketing and sales, right? So marketing, like, is one thing, sales is, but then like you need to have both of them doing well to really be profitable. And so guys, if your conversions are not there, just be honest with yourself. And really consider talking to Cassie. Cassie, I'm going to talk on your behalf. Like, talk to Cassie, reach out to her, because she has these proven methods, protocols, systems to really help people take their practice to the next level. Because here's the thing, guys. Like, and I tell my clients all the time, like, I would rather spend less money and make more, to make more money, right? Because once you would define that marketing advertising model that we talked about, well, what would I rather do? If every time I spend $500, I'm making $5,000 on top of that, but I want to improve my conversion rates, or if I want to I want to make more money. Okay, I can either spend more money in the front end to obviously, make $20,000, $50,000, $80,000 or more, right, per month, or would I rather improve my conversions? If I'm only closing at a 10% right now or a 20%, then I would rather improve my conversions than put more money at the very top, right? And so you guys, look at where your conversions are at now, and really evaluate, because the fastest way for you to get from A to B or A to Z, whatever, is to really have a coach and somebody that can train you and help you get there faster, because all you're doing is trading time. Like, we have the knowledge. Cassie has the knowledge. She's been there. She's done it numerous times with numerous number of clients. And, obviously, like, she has the experience. So, like, if you want to get there in 3 months, she can help you get there in 3 months. If you want to get there by yourself in 2 years, by all means, right? But,
Yep.
be our guest. But,
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just like, there's a lot of phone scripts. Like, people can come up with this stuff. I worked all night. Like, I have 5 kids, and my family, in the first 6 months of my med spa, because I was shifting my proven processes. I was just shifting them and making them fit this model. So they were already, done. And it still took me all day, every day into late nights, 7 days a week for 6 months. To shift it. So creating it from nothing is, why would you? I certainly wouldn't have if I had somebody that I could just purchase that stuff from. That would have been great. I see that, I mentioned last week that when I went to CSU Masters that, 20% of that room had done my course, like gone through and learned sales processes. Those people, save one account, but those other people had only gone through one time. Like they learned it for one time. And I think that speaks volumes because they've made it to, the diamond level with cool sculpting, all of that. But my staff goes through it every week. Like they go through that same training every week. And I don't think that there will ever be enough. I don't think that we'll ever stop. I told them, if anybody masters this, then let me know. If anybody is like the, no failures, no flaws kind of person, please let me know, because I still walk out of every podcast that I do with self-assessment, with, what can I do better next time? And so I think that's the conversation, like continuing with what can I do better? What can I do better is where you definitely want your staff. I think all business owners kind of sit there.
Yeah. And just to throw a snippet on here, like if our audience is kind of thinking, well, that's just for cool scoping, I want to say that Cassie's system and processes are not just about cool scoping. They're about, it's more about a methodology that is patient driven, right?
My injectables processes are returning, the best of anything that's ever been done right now. We were just talking about that before we went live. That's $135 to acquire clients that were worth over $3,000 last week for injectables.
Yeah.
So
that is amazing, right?
Yes. No,
yeah. And so that's the thing, guys, like, have a coach, like and people say this all the time, right? And you might've heard it, maybe not, but it's like the best athletes, they're where they're at because they have coaches. So don't put it aside as something like you don't need, because everybody needs it. Everybody needs a coach. And then also myself here a little bit, if you don't already have that system, that will generate, build your audience up, build authority in the marketplace, and then generating leads and all that, plus the CRM, because that's something we'll help you with as well. Talk to me, reach out to one of my guys, or just reach out to me personally, and I'll personally get you guys set up. So
I'm gonna jump in and do your snippet. Just because I want everybody to know this. I've worked with tens, maybe dozens, of marketing agencies over the years. While in the med spa, I found a good fit that worked for about a year. But then when that stopped working, I started shopping med spa marketing agencies, people who were, specifically working on med spas. And I worked with about 7. I worked with Luis for about half the time that I worked with some of the others. And what I found with Luis is that this is something that just doesn't stop. It's not a campaign that just gets written and then thrown in with your logo on it. And that's what I was finding with everywhere else. It was like, okay, we have a cool sculpting campaign. Okay, we have a Botox campaign. And they were, just sticking the logo on it. This, like I hit on before, what we can do with electronic marketing is it's in its infancy. And so you need somebody who's constantly dissecting themselves and looking for that better way. What can we do better? What can we do better? And that's what I found with Luis. And that's why, I don't work with anybody else. And I really thought that I would always work with 2 companies past the point of about March of this year. But no, I let everybody else go because Luis, and it doesn't matter, Luis, whatever I want to work on, we did display ads, if I come up with something, then he's like, sure, we'll try that. And we watch the numbers and work on it together. So you guys are in good hands if you reach out.
We just finished Cassie's website too, and now we're getting a lot of inquiries from phone calls and people sending us messages on the website too. So that's pretty fun to see.
Yeah, that's new. That was like 5 a day suddenly of new types of leads coming from website that he connected to Facebook Messenger. So that's really neat because it didn't make a new outlet. It didn't make somewhere else that we had to go to look for, not a new pipeline necessarily. It just kind of,
and it's not spending more money either, that's like, I guess one of the biggest things, like you're not spending more money. You're just really capitalizing on the current assets that you have and leveraging them better to see a better conversion, which is what we're always looking at.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Cassie. I appreciate that. Again, guys, so if you know, like, I mean, we talked about this system, and then again, we're at the time of year where, you know, a lot of people start looking at, okay, what, you know, end of the year, what am I going to do for 2019? How am I going to set myself apart? So really consider this.
Yeah, don't wait, guys. I'm going to jump in here because I saw about 8 accounts sign up the last week of December last year. Don't wait till that, because you can't train, you can't learn new things when volume's coming in the door. And you know by the end of January that you're going to be seeing more natural volume. So you really want your staff trained by that point. You want your campaign running. You want to know where the kinks are. So, you know, I would say reach out now, because you do have a few, you know, 4 good weeks, work weeks left of this year where you can really capitalize on the consultations and the phone calls that are going on already, learning how to systemize that, learning the CRM tool. Don't throw that in on January 1st. You need,
your staff's going to need training on that, by the way.
Luis has Evergenius, and so if you're like Evergenius, or there's a lot of them out there that you can use, but don't sign up for January 1st, because you're just going to make your staff really upset, and there's all kinds of, you know, just little things that you'll run into that need to be fixed. So now's the time, guys. Start moving. Don't wait.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for bearing with us on this episode. But I think it was a good one. I think people always like to hear like what's new and what's, you know, what works in the marketplace. So again, if you want to listen to this, go to iTunes, go to Spotify. We have this on our private Facebook group. So if you want to join that, then just go ahead and Google Med Spa Accelerator podcast. Don't Google that. Type it in on Facebook, Med Spa Accelerator podcast, and you'll find the group, and then just request access. And we have an online community there of other med spa owners just like you, kind of going through this process, all helping each other out. So we have a community there. And then you can also go to our website, medspaaccelerator.pro, and subscribe. And that way you can actually get each episode on your email. And subscribe on the iTunes and Spotify as well, and leave us a review, guys. Well, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. Cassie, I don't know if you have any final last words.
Nope, that's it. Get moving. 2019 is quickly approaching, and we want to be ready.
Let's get to work, guys. Let's do it. Let's do a great job. Let's crush it. And again, if you need anything from us, then reach out to us. And you know, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.